This week on SF UK, we get paranoid with The Prisoner, we look at alien conspiracy in the establishment with Quatermass, we meet the genius who created him, Nigel Neal, and we get voyeuristic with his Big Brother meets porno satire, The Year of the Sex Olympics. Welcome to the Year of the Sex Olympics. You're about to see fey gold-painted couples compete on a game show to see who has the best shagging skills. You're about to enter a country in which an elite band of TV producers are lording it over a nation of couch potatoes. In the Year of the Sex Olympics, you either make TV, watch TV, or if you're very lucky, you get to appear on TV.
Welcome to those king-style lovers, Cara Dindal and Stuart Tendley. Stuart and Cara.
I thought, yes, you could have a claim for a great good coming out of it, a world which was saturated with pornography of the soppiest kind as well as the hardcore. I thought it would probably take the form of something like Come Dancing.
1 minute studio.
In the Year of the Sex Olympics, we're living in a society so marinated in the hot juices of porn that we like to watch sex, but we're too bored to do it ourselves.
So here we go, the first round.
Ah, yes, nice.
Now that boredom could be turned to advantage, that those who ran whatever country this is could use it to depopulate, because everybody had lost interest in sex.
Sex is not to do. Sex is to watch.
Right now, we really like to watch. We're turning surveillance into entertainment. In the Year of the Sex Olympics, a couple of producers who create reality TV become disgusted by it and opt out. But they end up in an astonishing prediction of TV shows like Big Brother and Castaway, the live life show. Like Castaway, they go to live on an island, and like Big Brother, they'll film 24 hours a day there.
We're here now, and it started. We know you're here to watch.
Yes, I think we got a show.
But the producers of this live life show have a plan to boost ratings. A serial killer is also on the island. This new show is a prime-time hit. Its murders go down a storm with the focus groups. The audience can't stop laughing.
Look how they are laughing, because they're watching that man die. And they are laughing. Even when you see a small section of it now, it turns you over.
We are in two minds about surveillance. In the Year of the Sex Olympics, it was entertainment. But in a work Nigel Neal adapted for TV, George Orwell's 1984, the surveillance is terrifying, courtesy of the notorious Big Brother.
Big Brother is a mechanism of the totalitarian state, somebody who is watching you the whole time, somebody who is just making sure you're staying on message. But that idea of having no privacy, having no individual scope has become a very powerful metaphor. Indeed, as the internet and other forms of technology allow us to kind of play with and invade ideas of identity and privacy and individuality.
Surveillance is not just in the shopping centres, it's also in the bedroom, where webcams capture us stripping for the delectation of Texan wife swappers. There's no way George Orwell could have predicted our love for showing off in front of the cameras.
1984 had for so long been what we meant when we said the future, that when we got through it, and all we had was, I don't know, Margaret Thatcher and Boy George and Duran Duran or whatever else was around then. You think, well, that's not terribly futuristic, was it? I mean, a great many of the things Orwell wrote about happened, didn't they? We do have video cameras all over the place looking at us all the time. I suppose what Orwell didn't realise is that there would be bored security guards rather than frighteningly efficient secret police out there, and that the worst would happen was not that the thought police would come and get you, but that you having sex in a lift would be sold to a television show.
You can't watch science fiction these days without tripping over a good government cover-up involving aliens. Paranoia is a big science fiction idea, and the best early example of it is British.
If you think about conspiracy theories and science fiction, you probably think The X-Files. But the Americans were pretty latecomers to paranoia. It was only after Vietnam and Watergate that they really started to distrust their government. Well before The X-Files, Nigel Neal laid down the blueprint for the science fiction conspiracy thriller with Quatermass. Is that right? I feel a bit nervous in here. Must be all those Scouse genes.
Nigel Neal, for me, is the key British science fiction TV writer. And as we now think of science fiction almost as a television genre rather than a literary genre, he seems even more important. He wrote science fiction that everybody watched.
My mother shivered at the word Quatermass. It was terrifying and very popular. Pubs emptied as record-breaking audiences tuned in. They saw stories of alien-infected astronauts and London rioting under the influence of a murderous Martian mindset.
I think it's possible that we could write off all of American science fiction as just a rather sad, imitative falling off that has nothing to do with the pure good stuff that we like. And with Nigel Neal, who I think is the most significant creator of science fiction to have worked primarily in television. By which I mean to say he's a lot better than Gene Roddenberry, Rod Serling, various other people, none of whom I'll write off entirely.
Because that's how I always kind of think of Quatermass as a kind of man of reason with a bow tie, kind of English gentleman, but a little bit of a kind of maverick.
Yes. He had a problem, and his problem was that his rocket group was going to be taken over. The great English rocket group, which of course never existed, and it was going to be taken over for warlike purposes, which he did not like. So they were going to plant rocketry on the moon.
Quatermass is always locking horns with the government. Those ignorant bureaucrats just don't understand the dangers facing us all. But Quatermass is also nervous, fearful, afraid of what forces might be unleashed by his experiments. Don't you know that the government are under the control of aliens? And these aliens, they can read your minds and your emails. And there's this complex where the aliens are getting ready and they're going to create a new world order. It's a conspiracy and they're covering it up.
There's this wonderful feeling of paranoia. When people read about the strange institutions and the weird power stations that were cropping up around the country, nuclear power was being experimented with. So there were certain areas of the country that people were sort of asked not to go to. They were rather lonely, foreboding places. Neal came out of the Second World War feeling that the cover-ups and the conspiracies, the secrets that were being held back from what was actually happening was something that needed to be uncovered. And he always considered that, again, the government were doing everything they could to hide these things, to keep them from the public.
The Official Secrets Act swung in very, very hard. In fact, I had, as a writer in the BBC, had been made to sign it.
But mum's the word. It's 50s Britain. It's a happy time, and there's a wife in every kitchen. a chicken in every pot, and absolutely no lurking, creeping horrors beneath it all.
1953 was an overconfident year, and I love the fact he was deliberately setting out to wreck the coronation and Everest. But then only a couple of years later, we'd become a much more suspicious, paranoid society, lots of strange government domes everywhere.
All this paranoia boiled up in Quatermass 2, a chilling story of brainwashed politicians and their mysterious domes, where the only zone you can visit is the alien zone. This dome is not in Greenwich, it's in an oil refinery near Colchester, and what's inside is strictly off-message, an alien hive mind.
The stuff that is really powerful is the stuff about the faceless men in those refinery suits, in that fantastic refinery on the marshes, and fantastic stuff where the man falls into the food and comes down steaming.
This horrific scene in which a man has fallen into the alien goo loses some of its terror when the victim comes over all Norman wisdom.
No, no, don't touch me! No, no, don't touch me!
The corruption and alien mind control goes right to the top. The politicians are kept on message, not by a pager, but by a telltale scab on the wrist. Aliens sit on the benches of Parliament. The Queen Mother is a shape-changing lizard. Peter Mandelson was about to reveal himself as one of them, and that's why they had to get rid of him. Fortunately, the conspiracy theories in Quatermass are more subtle than this.
Oh, are you the chap with my pass? Well, I was wondering whether I might bring somebody along.
Name? Quatermass. Yes, I think that'll be in order. Thank you. You've just over an hour.
Wasn't it quite subversive to suggest that the establishment had been taken over by aliens?
Yes, I think well, they always felt they'd be the most vulnerable because of their nature, that the establishment by its very existence is open to being taken over by aliens, because some of them are halfway there anyway.
In Quatermass, we're paranoid about the government, aliens and surveillance. But now, we're more like the people in the year of the Sex Olympics. Happy voyeurs, contented, except for one nagging question. Were the people who came first the losers? Coming up, more good old British paranoia in the 60s TV show, The Prisoner.
Paranoia is actually an awfully optimistic frame of mind. It's a lot more reassuring to think that everyone is out to get you and that you are the centre of a global conspiracy, rather than to face up to the fact that you're insignificant and no one gives a shit about you. After Quatermass, the joys of paranoia were celebrated in cult 60s TV show, The Prisoner.
From the opening shot of the title sequence, you know The Prisoner is going to be weird. A quaint English world of bureaucracy is given surreal twists, like the chauffeur with his knockout gas.
Prisoner is one of those series you can't quite believe was really made, particularly for ITV. It was so strange and so different and so experimental and went into, you know, such odd areas.
Watching The Prisoner is like hanging out at a 60s happening thrown by MI5. It's Eton with a soupçon of LSD. It's Butlins with brainwashing. It's more than weird. It's weirdy weird. It's what weird does when it wants to get weirded out.
They got the rushes back or whatever, and they suddenly think, what the bloody hell is this bullshit? We thought we were getting Danger Man Part 2. And instead they got this sort of strange paranoid thing about identity and the state and the public school thing, and the sort of, where they sort of have the Eton boating song, this whole British society made strange, the kind of Butlins holiday camp sort of come public school system.
The Prisoner was filmed here in Portmeirion, although in the show it's called The Village. And each week our hero, number 6, struggles against the forces of oppression. The masters of the village want him to tell them why he resigned, but he will not give in. He is not a number, he is a free man.
The village is a very seductive place, especially for English people. It's a sort of romantic, whimsical village where you can play croquet, have the odd fancy dress party. It's not such a bad place to live. It's certainly not the Colditz of the war or a Japanese prisoner of war camp, and by that it makes it even more dangerous.
Portmeirion is the ideal location for the village. It is a beautiful, mysterious place, but it's also timeless. It's bordered by water, so it's quite confining. It could be anywhere on the face of this earth. It is a psychedelic open prison. But who are the prisoners? The prisoners are subversives who know too much, and they're subject to mind control, both to find out what they know and to transform them into model citizens. And if they step out of line, they are hunted down by Rover. The Rover balloons were used by the people who ran the mysterious village to enforce order and also make sure no one escaped. They were the prison guards. And they had this great scene when they would go over people's faces, you know, that effect when you get polythene, you kind of, you see the hands pushing. They would do that as well, which, you know, if you were in an altered state of mind in the middle of the night when you're watching it, could be quite disturbing. To find out more about this maddening masterpiece, I hunted down the founder of the Prisoner Appreciation Society, 6 of 1, Mr. David Barry.
I know people will label us all as loonies.
Yeah.
And in fact, I think they sort of used to. I think it's become more acceptable now to appreciate a TV programme. It never used to be.
Every week, the mind games got more surreal. I mean, one week it would be an escape attempt, you see. The following week it would be a Western, and you would say, how have we got into this Western? And at the end it would all be revealed it was through hallucinatory drugs.
Me and Dave went on to enjoy an intense conversation about the relationship between the prisoner, surveillance, and the meaning of life.
You've only got to look at the village and you begin to think, is this past, future or present? And then you look at the technology and the surveillance. You know, everyone walks around with these surveillance cameras on them, and these days we welcome that, but then that was considered a great fear. That was Big Brother then, wasn't it? We are being watched. It's where there was a very...
David Barry's appreciation of the prisoner goes beyond mere fandom. For Dave, it's a spiritual quest.
The prisoner is a springboard to personal growth. We've taken looks through various forms, if you like, of raising consciousness, awareness. Is the last episode all about the Day of Judgment? Is it Christian? Or has he entered Bardo, which is a state you go into if you believe the Tibetan Book of the Dead?
In the pub, fellow devotees traded the hidden secrets of the series. It was all becoming disturbingly clear.
I remember, this is Howard. Howard's been a member. How many years, Howard?
Since the early days, since the very beginning.
As did Bob, because you've been a member. I remember meeting you back in '77.
Cheltenham was my first one, yes.
That's right.
Even though in the 60s I loved watching it, I loved the background, the setting, the music. Even though I could never understand that, I still enjoyed watching it. Today, I understand it a lot better. Some of these town shopping centres, they've got these video cams. It doesn't matter where you hide, it's also by numbers. Your passport's a number, age is a number, your car's a number, so whatever you do, you cannot get away from numbers. Numbers.
Now this is the house where number 6 lived, and over here is the base of his nemesis, number 2, which is the highest point in the village from which he can look down upon everyone and they can't see him. Now, for me, the village combines two types of surveillance, the old-style, curtain-twitching, nosy neighbour, with the more modern devices of surveillance, cameras and bugging devices. As I say in The Prisoner, be seeing you.
It's a world of, you know, large amounts of surveillance, not only technological surveillance, but people grassing each other up the whole time. It's sort of like, you know, Nazi villages in Germany in the 30s, or it's very Cold War kind of flavour. You can't trust anybody at all.
The final episode of The Prisoner was broadcast in 1968. It was called Fallout. It was the one where we were meant to find out who number 6 was, why he'd resigned, what the village was doing, but most importantly, who is number 1. You see, number 6 eventually gets to confront number 1, a cowled figure wearing an actor's mask. Number 6 tears the mask from his face to reveal an ape's mask. There is a pause, and then he tears off the ape's mask to reveal his own face. Number 6 is number 1.
Contact priority!
The Prisoner ends in chaos. It's a sour British slant on the 60s, with flower power replaced by firepower. The Beatles' All You Need Is Love plays ironically over scenes of the gunfight and images of the bomb. It's also 60s, it hurts.
I have my own theory about the ending of The Prisoner and what it all means. You see, right the way through the series, it's been a battle between the individual and conformity. But this battle doesn't just go on in society, it goes on within our minds. There is part of us that wants to fit in, but there's part of us that also wants to be ourselves. We are both prisoners and jailers.
British and in particular English people are very good at repressing themselves, at keeping the status quo intact, and perhaps entertaining some whimsical ideas of rebellion for a short while, but at the end they will still always love Big Brother.
Ultimately, the message of The Prisoner and Quatermass is the same. We don't need an authoritarian government to hold us down. We don't need Big Brother to suppress us. We'll happily do it ourselves. We are our own thought police. We are all number 1. He's seeing you.
Next week on SF UK, Sex Machines. Jerry Anderson's Thunderbirds meet the carnal carnage of J.G. Ballard's Crash.